Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're setting out on, well, kind of an intellectual archaeology dig.
Yeah, digging deep.
Our mission is to uncover the foundations, the bedrock of what we now call the modern self.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not really trying to figure out who you are right now in this moment. It's more about the intellectual groundwork laid centuries back.
Exactly. The stuff that makes your current gut feelings psychologically, morally, politically even possible.
It's like the ultimate history of ideas, isn't it?
It really is. And it operates under this crucial idea that our source material flags right at the start. It cites Ecclesiastes 1.10.
Oh, yeah. What's the quote?
See, this is new. It has been already in the ages before us.
Nothing new under the sun.
Pretty much. What feels so unique to us now in the 21st century.
Mm.
You know, the ways thinkers like Philip Reef or Charles Taylor or Alasdair MacIntyre frame things.
Yeah.
Well, that framework didn't just pop up in the 1960s. It was actually built back in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Right. So our job today is to really pin down how those developments back then created the fertile soil for everything we see now.
The chaos, the enthusiasm for self-discovery, that absolute focus on our inner lives.
Exactly. Let's unpack that history. Where should we start? The big inward turn.
That seems like the place.
Yeah.
The inward psychological turn. Now, historically, you had thinkers like Descartes and Locke. They were definitely thinking about the inner mind.
Sure, epistemology, how we know things.
Right. But the sources make this key distinction. When Jean-Jacques Rousseau and then the Romantics came along, that inward focus, it stopped just being about knowing. It became deeply ethical.
Ah, okay.
Right.
So it wasn't just how you think inside, but that inner life became the source of, moral truth.
That's the pivot point, intellectually. And what's fascinating is how this inward turn immediately got used as a pretty sharp critique of society.
How so?
The Romantics basically argued that society, especially the organized, formal, maybe even industrializing society emerging, that it forces people into these external molds, these conventions.
Makes sense.
And doing that, they argued, made individuals untrue to their inner impulses. It made them inauthentic.
And bam, there's a language we still use constantly. Authenticity.
Exactly. This is where Charles Taylor's idea of expressive individualism comes from.
And Philip Reef's psychological man.
Right. The core idea is suddenly that your identity isn't about your family or your job or your social role anymore. It's defined by those unique feelings, those impulses inside you.
So the whole point of life shifts.
It does, from, say, fulfilling some external duty or divine command to expressing that internal, authentic self.
And you can really feel the power of that idea today, can't you? I mean, if you, listening right now, define happiness mostly by feeling good inside, psychologically.
Yeah, whether that's about your job or what you buy or how you identify.
You're tapping right into that cultural stream started by Rousseau centuries ago.
It's crucial to get the timeline, though, because this idea that being true to yourself is the highest good, it really didn't just start with the boomers or therapy culture.
Yeah.
The roots of our therapeutic society go way back, grounded in this romantic notion that the real you is buried under all those societal layers.
Okay, but Rousseau and those early romantics, they still had some kind of backstop, right? Even as they turned inward.
They did. They had a sort of safety net. They generally believed that if you could just strip away all the hypocrisy of civilization, that nature itself, capital N, had this intrinsic, almost sacred order. There was still a moral universe out there,
So they thought human nature was fundamentally good. Listen to your inner voice and it leads you right.
Broadly speaking, yes. That was the assumption. But that safety net, that belief in a shared, inherent, maybe even sacred order, that's where things really start to unravel in the mid-19th century.
Okay.
And the sources bring in what you could call the lethal trio.
Yeah.
Friedrich Nietzsche, Karl Marx, and Charles Darwin.
Ah, the big guns. Okay, let's talk about them. Because they didn't just chip away at the sacred order, they kind of dynamited the foundations, right?
That's a good way to put it.
So Nietzsche and Marx, often seen as opposites, but how did they both end up attacking metaphysics?
Well, Nietzsche was like the philosophical hitman. He looked at the polite Enlightenment types who'd maybe stopped believing God but kept the morality.
Right, kept the rules but ditched the reason?
Yeah. And Nietzsche basically said, you killed God, now face the consequences. He saw any clinging to sacred order or traditional morals as just a sign of sickness, psychological weakness holding back the strong.
A kind of resentment-fueled lie.
Exactly. And Marx, coming from a totally different angle, economics. He kind of did the same thing. He saw belief in God and sacred order not just as wrong, but as a tool.
The opium of the people.
Right. A tool used by the ruling class to keep the poor down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also a symptom of their alienation. So for both of them, any remaining sacred order was proof society was broken, either psychologically sick or economically oppressive.
Okay, so they both diagnosed it as a sickness, but the source material points to Darwin as dealing the real death blow. Why Darwin? He was a biologist.
Yeah, it's because you removed teleology.
Teleology.
Yeah.
That's the idea of purpose, like inherent direction in things.
Exactly. For literally millennia, humans saw existence, especially human existence, as having a point, a telos. Like an acorn's purpose is to be an oak.
Got it.
Darwin just wiped that away. Natural selection, descent from apes.
Hmm.
It meant humans weren't special. We were just another species, product of blind material forces. No inherent purpose.
So meaning wasn't built in anymore. It had to be found somewhere else, or maybe just made up.
Precisely. And it had to be understood in purely material terms.
Yes.
Plus, the source notes something really important. His core idea, we came from animals we look like.
Yeah.
That was easy to grasp. Even if you didn't get the science, the basic picture made intuitive sense.
Much easier than complex philosophy.
Way easier. It answered the biggest question. Why are we here? With no ultimate reason, just chance. That intuitive power made Darwin incredibly effective at undermining the whole metaphysical basis of Western thought.
Wow. Okay, so kill God with Nietzsche. Abolish religion and class structure with Marx. Eliminate purpose with Darwin. The shared cultural story just dissolves. What happens then?
Well, according to Reef, you get what he called anti-cultures.
Anti-cultures, what are they like?
The sources paint them as inherently unstable, volatile, entropic, kind of self-defeating, actually.
Why?
Because traditional cultures, they have an external justification, something sacred, something transcendent that backs up their rules and beliefs.
Yeah.
Anti-cultures, they've got nothing outside themselves.
So they have to constantly make it up as they go along.
Exactly. Always inventing and reinventing their own meaning, which makes them inherently unstable.
And that instability surely spills over into morality, right? Which brings us to, well, the mess of moral arguments today.
Absolutely. Once the sacred order goes, any common ground for moral agreement just evaporates. That's really the core of Alistair McIntyre's big claim, isn't it?
Yeah, that our moral debates are pointless because we don't even agree on the basics anymore.
We talk past each other. We lack a shared definition of good, a shared foundation for the whole discussion.
And going back to Rousseau, he thought feelings could guide us morally, but he assumed we all basically felt the same way underneath, right? A common human nature.
He did. But if Nietzsche, Marx, and Darwin effectively demolished that idea of a shared, meaningful human nature,
then all you're left with is just feelings, subjective feelings floating free.
That's what the sources suggest, free-floating subjective sentiment. Your feelings are your compass, but there's zero guarantee they point the same way as mine or anyone else's.
Which sounds a lot like today, where we take our own strong emotional reactions and treat them like absolute moral laws.
And the roots of that moral anarchy, as the text calls it, were planted right there in the 19th century when that metaphysical foundation crumbled.
So in that vacuum, what fills the void?
This is where the sources talk about a huge cultural shift.
Yeah.
The move from mimesis to poiesis.
Okay, technical terms. Break those down. Mimesis first.
Mimesis basically means imitation, copying. Traditional culture was mimetic. You imitated God's plan, you followed the cultural script, you tried to be like the hero or the saint.
Okay, following a pattern. So poiesis is
Creation. Making.
So we stop imitating and start creating reality ourselves.
That's the idea. If culture, nature, even your own identity are just constructs, just things put together with no inherent meaning, which is what the trio seem to argue, then meaning isn't found. It has to be made.
By us.
By human beings. We stop being creatures, following a pre-written script, and start being the authors, inventing the script as we go.
That is a massive fundamental change in how humans see themselves. What gave people the confidence to even think like that?
Well, it seems like a perfect storm, really. You've got Nietzsche's challenge ringing in their ears. God is dead. You must become gods. Create your own values.
Right.
And then combine that philosophical dare with the sheer raw power of the Industrial Revolution happening all around them.
Technology.
Exactly. Suddenly, humans weren't just thinking about creating meaning. They were physically transforming the planet, building factories, machines, reshaping landscapes. It fed this sense that humans were,
in charge.
yeah, sovereigns at the center of a universe to which they could give shape and significance. That's how the source puts it.
We're not just living in creation, we are the creators now.
And that new, powerful self-image leads straight into another key feature of Reef's emerging anti-cultures. This deep suspicion of history. an anti-historical vibe.
Which also really takes root back then in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Hmm.
And the sources say this anti-historical feeling shows up in a couple of main ways. The first one is psychological, right? Going back to the Romantics again.
Yeah, that's the idea that history, meaning society, culture, tradition, it actually warps you. It deforms the authentic inner self.
So to be truly yourself, you have to somehow escape history, erase it.
Overcome it, transcend it, yeah. The individual needs liberation from the sort of brute facts of their own past, their body, their context.
And the source connects this deep romantic drive to, well, to some contemporary identity movements, doesn't it?
It does, yes. It suggests this is the basic logic behind something like transgenderism, for instance. The idea being that the given historical or biological reality is something to be rejected or overcome.
In favor of the authentic self defined by that inner psychological state.
Right. The goal is to kind of declare your own starting point, independent of history.
Okay, that's the psychological anti-history. What's the second way it shows up? Power dynamics.
Yes, and this is where Nietzsche and Marx come back in strong. For them, history isn't some noble story of progress. It's just a brutal record of power struggles and manipulation.
So for Nietzsche, morality itself was just a historical con job.
A trick the weak used to control the strong throughout history. And for Marx, history was only the story of class struggle. Morality, laws, religion, just ideology the ruling class used to keep power.
So they basically flip history upside down. The good guys become bad guys.
And the whole point of understanding history becomes figuring out how to end it, how to overcome those power dynamics, which, you can see, provides a pretty powerful philosophical justification for the revolutionary attitude of an anti-culture.
Makes sense. And that ties into the final point here, Marx and the abolition of the pre-political. What exactly is the pre-political?
Well, think of the pre-political as that realm of life traditionally seen as private, outside the direct reach of state power or overt political conflict.
Like family life, hobbies, maybe local community groups.
Exactly. Your personal relationships, the things you do for yourself or your immediate community, not aimed directly at seizing state power. That was considered a separate private sphere.
And Marx just demolished that idea.
He effectively did. He argued that human identity itself is formed entirely by economic relationships, and those are inherently political power struggles.
So if who you are is political,
then everything you do intentionally is political. There's no escape, there's no neutral corner, no private space that isn't already shaped by and part of the political economic struggle. Everything becomes about power.
and boy, does they sound familiar today, that underlying assumption that everything is political.
It's become the air we breathe, culturally speaking. It's the consequence we're living with now. It explains why, everything from kids' cartoons and sports leagues to corporations and even, like, the Girl Scouts gets dragged into political battles.
Because the very idea of a private, non-political space has basically vanished.
It's been abolished, conceptually.
Okay, let's try and pull these threads together. What we've unearthed from the 18th and 19th centuries is, first, that huge inward psychological turn.
Leading to expressive individualism, yeah.
Then, the systematic takedown of sacred order and purpose, thanks to Nietzsche, Marx, Darwin.
Which created the conditions for moral confusion, moral anarchy.
And that led to this idea of the self as a creator, not just an imitator. The shift from mimesis to poiesis.
Fueled by technology and philosophy.
And all of that culminates in this anti-historical sentiment and the total politicization of absolutely everything.
It's quite a chain reaction. And all these intuitions, these gut feelings that shape how we argue and live today, they weren't invented yesterday. They were intellectually forged centuries ago.
The past really did provide the soil for the present.
Incredibly fertile soil, as the sources show.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with one last thing to chew on, drawing from Philip Rieff.
Right.
Rieff argued that cultures are fundamentally defined by what they forbid, especially around, say, sexual codes, the thou shalt nots.
Right, the boundaries that create order.
So consider the deep implications of an anti-culture, this unstable, self-creating world we've been tracing, that comes to see the very idea of forbidding the thou shalt not as inherently bad, as life-denying, wicked, repressive. What happens to the stability, the coherence of a culture when the only thing that's truly forbidden is forbidding itself?
That's definitely something to think about. What holds it together then?
Exactly. Something to mull over as you continue your own dive into the modern self.